Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Greetings of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the President of Philippines are conveyed by Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Secretary General of the United Nations praises His Majesty the Sultan's efforts to strengthen international security and stability. And the Ministry of Transport and Communications announces that the first phase of Muscat International Airport project will be opened on the 14th of December. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. Greetings and best wishes of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to His Excellency President Benigno Aquino of the Philippines of good health, happiness and further progress and prosperity for the Filipino people were conveyed by His Excellency Syed Badr bin Hamad bin Hamoud Al Busaidi, Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when he was received by His Excellency Rene Alamandras, Prime Minister of the Philippines, in the Presidential Palace in Manila. During the meeting, they covered the ways of enhancing trade, transport, communications, health workforce, vocational training, education and tourism between the two countries. Thank you. His Excellency Ban KiMoon, Secretary General of the United Nations, praised the wisdom and balanced policy of His Majesty the Sultan and his efforts to strengthen international security and stability, indicated that this balanced policy has helped the region to avoid conflict and wars. He forwarded his thanks to His Majesty for the support he presented to the educational institutions of the United Nations. This came at a reception hosted by the Secretary General of the United Nations to His Excellency Dr. Abdul Munim bin Mansour Lahsani, Minister of Information in the United Nations headquarters in New York. The meeting reviewed the relations of the Sultanate of Oman with the United Nations and means of joint cooperation. The visit of His Excellency the Minister has opened new cooperation fields between the Sultanate of Oman and the United Nations in training and exchange of media and expertise. This visit is important because it is first of its kind by an Arab minister to the United Nations and meeting with its experts. His Excellency Dr. Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Futaisi, Minister of Transport and Communications, announced that the first phase of the Muscat International Airport project will be open on the 14th of December. He also said that this phase will include main runway with a length of 4 kilometers and width of 75 meters linked with the current terminal building. He added that it also will contain the launching of the roads linked between Sultan Qaboos Street and 18th November Street, in addition to air traffic control tower, which was built according to best modern techniques, indicating that the building for Public Authority for Civil Aviation and 12 new buildings will also be launched, in addition to Weather Prediction and Meteorology Center. With the participation of 200 heart doctors, technicians and nurses from various health institutions in the Sultanate, the Royal Hospital organized cardiac catheterization open day. It aimed to provide the participant with the latest medical developments in cardiac catheterization field and to get familiarized with the latest development and treatment techniques used in the cardiac catheterization. It also included a number of activities such as distributing educational booklets on cardiac catheterization, as well as clarification exhibition for the followed medical procedures before and during the catheter. The latest medical materials which are used in cardiac catheterization field were also shown. Within the aim to control emergency cases which fires may cause, the Directorate General of Health Services in the Governorate of Dakhiliya, in cooperation with ISKI Hospital, organized evacuation training program during facing fire emergency. The training program aimed to provide the medical cadres with evacuation correct steps during emergency cases. The participants expressed that this practical program was a great opportunity to learn how to save people's life during fire cases. Stay tuned because still to come in our news bulletin. NASA's Orion spaceship, which is designed to fly astronauts to Mars, had a nearly flawless debut test run. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. With the continuation in the instability of oil prices, the Moscow Securities market MSM General Index lost around 360 points last week, comprising a decline by 5.19%. The report released by MSM pointed out that the value of shares bought by non-Omani investors reached around 25%. Meanwhile, the local purchase value reached around 64% of the total trading value of the market. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry has completed the second stage of the OneStop Station project, which comprised of more than 15 e-services via websites Invest Easily. It is considered an e-window through which the investor can finish numerous services and transactions without referring to the ministry. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry is preparing to commence the work of its third stage, through which the investor can get commercial register and complete all transactions electronically. Children of the Governorate of Musandam celebrated the 44th Glorious National Day by performing national poems and traditional dances. The children raised portraits of His Majesty the Sultan and Omani flags, chanting national songs in the love of the country and its leader, praying to Almighty to protect His Majesty and endow him with good health. Al-Ghalia bint Nasser School in the Wilaya of Ibri at the Governorate of Dhahira organized a musical skills exhibition. It came to enhance student skills in the field and introduce them to the Omani singing arts that are performed in the national occasions. The sections of the exhibition included a number of musical instruments, a theater and students' workshops. The participants expressed that such events improve their knowledge in this field as well as allow them to use various new techniques in performing musical pieces. NASA celebrated yesterday the nearly flawless debut test run of its Orion spaceship, which is designed to one-day fly astronauts to Mars. The Orion capsule blasted off aboard a Delta IV heavy rocket, the biggest in the U.S. fleet, from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. 3 hours later, it reached peak altitude of 5,800 kilometers above the planet, a prelude to the most challenging part of the flight, a 32,000 kilometer per hour dive back into the atmosphere. Orion survived a searing plunge through the atmosphere, heating up to 2,200 degrees Celsius, twice as hot as molten lava, and experiencing gravitational forces 8 times stronger than Earth's. Over the next few minutes, a total of 11 parachutes deployed to slow Orion's descent, including 3 gigantic main chutes that guided the spaceship to a 32-kilometer-per-hour splashdown in the Pacific Ocean, 1,014 kilometers southwest of San Diego, California, at 16:29 GMT. Strong winds felled trees as a powerful typhoon rolled into the eastern Philippines today, bringing intense rain and threatening to wreak more destruction to areas still bearing the scars of a super typhoon 13 months ago. More than 500,000 people had already fled to shelters ahead of Typhoon Hagupit making landfall in what a UN agency said was one of the world's biggest peacetime evacuations. As the storm arrived, power was cut across most of the central Philippine island of Samar and nearby Leyte province, including Tacloban City, considered ground zero of the devastating super typhoon Haiyan last year. The Weather Bureau said Hagupit had weakened to a Category 3 storm, 2 notches below super typhoon, but could still unleash huge destruction with torrential rain and potentially disastrous storm surges of up to 4.5 meters. It added that the eye of the typhoon was 55 kilometers from the town of Dolores, eastern Samar. Now for the general weather forecast. Clear skies will prevail over the Sultanate with chances of low clouds and fog over parts of the governorates of Dhahira, Buraymi, Wusta and the coastal areas. Winds will be northerly to northeasterly light to moderate along the southeastern coast and along the rest of the Sultanate. It will be northwesterly light to moderate. Seas will be moderate along the southeastern coast and the western coast of the Governorate of Musandam with a maximum wave height of 2 meters. Along the rest of the coast, it will be slight with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Greetings of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the President of Philippines are conveyed by Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Secretary General of the United Nations praises His Majesty the Sultan's efforts to strengthen international security and stability. And the Ministry of Transport and Communications announces that the first phase of Muscat International Airport project will be open on the 13th of December. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studio, thank you for watching and good night.